Hi everybody, welcome Miracles Tribe members and Miracles Attraction community members to my weekly Wednesday Wisdom video. I'm so glad that you could join me here this week to talk about fear. And the title of my talk is Fear Not, because we are not meant to live in fear. Fear is an egoic response to our environment and it's not necessary. So, every time the angels showed up in the Bible, they always said, fear not. As soon as the angels showed up in front of mortals, that was the first thing that they said, fear not. We're not meant to live in fear, but many of us believe that fear is a survival instinct and that we need it to function in the world. So that may have certainly been true in the caveman days when we were out scrapping to survive, looking for food, and it was hunt or be hunted. But in this day and age, when many of us work at desks or work remotely or work in service industries, we're not facing lions and tigers and bears every day. It may feel like we're facing threats every day because if you watch the news, it seems like everybody is going around raping, murdering, and pillaging all the time, and that we have to be on guard. But that is not factual. That's actually a very small percentage of what is going on in the world. And living in a state of fear is not helpful. In fact, it's bad for your nervous system. It creates a whole host of other problems. When you're in constant fear, your body records that at a cellular level, and it can create illnesses and all kinds of mental illnesses, physical illnesses, all kinds of other issues. So the goal is to release our fears and to live in harmony and peace. And I wanted to share this very beautiful quote from A Course in Miracles that says, "Can you imagine what it means to have no cares, no worries, no anxieties, but merely to be perfectly calm and quiet all the time?" Can you imagine that? Because that's how we're meant to live here. And it may seem very unrealistic, but I can tell you from my own personal experience that it's possible. So I have a story to share, as usual, from my background. And it's from about 10 years ago when I was involved in a study group for students of A Course in Miracles. And the facilitator of that group was offering some private coaching. And I wanted to do that with her because I wanted to be more committed to my spiritual practice. And I felt like going to a meeting once a week with a group of people wasn't really getting me there. But she wanted $40 an hour. And at that time in my life, that seemed like an unrealistic amount of money to pay somebody for that type of work. However, as you may have heard me talk about in the past, I was a coupon queen in those days. So I got a lot of things for free at the supermarket and at drugstores. And I made a deal with her to barter, to trade. And I said, I'll come every Saturday and I'll bring you a basket with $40 worth of merchandise, soap and shampoo and razors and snacks. And she agreed to that. So that was the deal that we had going on for a few months, where I would bring her a basket worth $40 worth of things, and then she would spend an hour with me on whatever lessons from A Course in Miracles she thought it was important to impart to me. Honestly, I didn't get a lot out of that coaching, except for my own dedication to my spiritual practice to set more time aside. However, I had an experience while I was working with her that changed the way that I saw things. I never considered myself a fearful person, but while I was working with this woman, I went home afterwards one Saturday and I sat at my desk in my office by myself in broad daylight, closed my eyes, and tried to meditate for a few minutes. And when I did, I suddenly became aware of the fact that I felt afraid. I felt fearful for no apparent reason. I was alone in my home, perfectly safe, in broad daylight, with my eyes closed, sitting at my desk, and yet I noticed that there was this fear, like that was there that I had never noticed before. So I didn't know what that was all about. And next Saturday when I went to see my coach, I told her about it. And I learned that this is how most of us live all of our lives, going through life with this fear in the background of our daily experience that we are completely unaware of. It's in the subconscious, and it drives how we interact in life, how we see things, how we do things, and it creates a lot of stress, a lot of unnecessary stress for us, and we can release it. This is how the workbook lessons of A Course in Miracles work. They show us little by little how we can release the fear and live without the fear. So you may think, like I did, that you're not a fearful person. You're not quaking in your boots every day when you get up to face the day. But if you have fear, manifests itself in many other ways besides fright. It can show up, for example, as worry. Worry is a manifestation of fear. If you worry about things, then you have a fear of what may happen. You have a fear of the future and what it holds for you. And after I had this shift, this spiritual shift in 2015, my worry dropped away. I used to worry all the time about all kinds of things because I thought that was the responsible way to go through life, to think about what might happen, try to prepare for what might happen, and it was a bad habit. And what I learned was thinking about what might happen and preparing for what might happen made me no better prepared or able to cope than not doing that. So I let go of worry, or maybe worry let go of me, I don't know, but I don't spend any mental energy on that activity any longer. And let me tell you, it's a relief. Maybe you have sadness a lot, and often sadness is another manifestation of fear, which shows up as regrets for things that happened in the past and a fear that they could happen again in the future, or a fear of loss. If you've had losses in your life, they may come up feeling like sadness, but they're really manifestations of fear that you're not divinely supported, that you won't be taken care of and comforted. Just the belief in loss in and of itself is an egoic thought. Or what about anger? That's another manifestation of fear. You know, A Course in Miracles says that anger is never justified. Why? Because it's not necessary. You don't need to get angry to survive on this planet. You don't need to retaliate. You can rest in God knowing that everything is being taken care of, and you don't need to waste any mental energy on that. And then the big one for me, the biggest manifestation of fear that I used to exhibit a lot was doubt. I had doubts that things were going to work out. I had doubts that other people were going to do a good job. I had doubts that I was going to get the things that I wanted in life. And I spent a lot of time wondering and worrying and doubting. And it was all coming from this place of fear that I didn't even know was back there until I had this experience where I tried to sit and meditate, and I suddenly had an awareness of it. Until you have an awareness of something in your life, you can't do anything about it. You can't shift it or change it, because if you don't know it's there, you don't realize there's a problem, there's nothing to address, right? So Rumi, the poet, said, "Wake up. This world that you dream holds nothing to fear." There's nothing to fear in this world. And later on, when I was meeting with my Course in Miracles study group one time, somebody in the group said you wouldn't be human if you didn't worry or if you didn't have fear. And I was like, no, I don't think that's true. I'm pretty sure I'm human and I don't worry anymore about anything. And that person said, if you weren't afraid to cross the street, you would step out in traffic and get run over. You need fear to survive. And I was like, no, it's one thing to know what the cause and effect is in the world, to know that if I step out in moving traffic, I will be injured or hurt or killed. But you can have that knowledge, you can have that awareness without the feeling of fear. You don't need the feeling of fear to know how to act or respond in the world. You can know that if you touch a hot stove, you're going to get burned, but you don't have to be afraid to use the stove. You can go cook dinner every night without any fear, right? So this idea that fear is something that protects us and that keeps us safe is simply false. There's no truth in that concept. And A Course in Miracles says that we made the fear, and so we are the ones who must undo the fear. It cannot be taken away from us by anyone else or by higher power. We have to let it go. We have to realize that the fear doesn't serve us and we no longer want it in our life. And I found a very useful prayer to use if I ever do have anxiety come up or fear come up for a moment, which is, please heal my fear-based thoughts. Because the feeling of the fear always comes from a misaligned thought, a limiting thought, a thought of lack or limitation, loss, some egoic idea that we believe without question, and we have that thought, and then it creates the feeling of fear. So this prayer is from a book by Deborah Ingalls that you can find. It's called The Only Prayer You'll Ever Need, and the prayer is, please heal my fear-based thoughts. So we're asking for help from a higher power to help us help ourselves with our crazy fear-based thinking. So I also wanted to mention a wonderful book by Anita Moorjani called Dying to Be Me. And if you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. I'll post a link to it. But Anita Moorjani also did a very powerful TED Talk, and in the talk, she describes how she lived her life in constant fear. She was bullied as a young woman. She lived in a multicultural environment where she didn't feel accepted, and all of these fear-based thoughts that she carried with her throughout her life actually created a fatal illness in her body. She was diagnosed with incurable cancer, and she was in the hospital basically waiting to die. The doctors had told her and her family that there was nothing more that could be done for her, and she had this very powerful near-death experience where she was taken to the other side, and she was shown what her life was all about and how she had hampered herself and held herself back from really experiencing and enjoying life because of her fears. And when she was revived from this near-death experience, she started to heal. Now she's perfectly healthy, and her message to the world is to live your life fearlessly. There's nothing dangerous going on here. The body needs protection from the elements, but the body is not who you are. That is not all there is to you. You are so much more than that. You are an eternal being, and when the body passes, you will still be here. So we don't need to fear anything that may or may not happen to the body, and that will not protect us. What we need to do is turn our fears over to a higher power, trust that we are always taken care of, divinely supported. And if you look back through your life, you may see that awful things happened or you were mistreated, but you're still here. You're still alive and kicking. You're still breathing, or you wouldn't be watching this Facebook Live. So I just want to give a shout out to all you guys for showing up. Martin and Jody and Brenda, it's so great to see you. And Mona, Rebecca, and Jean, lovely to have you here with me. I'm so happy to share these Wednesday Wisdom videos every week, and if there's something else you'd like me to talk about, please feel free to drop me a comment. If there's any questions that you have about what I said today, I'm more than happy to answer them. And I'm Teresa McGallicher, and I love you. Have a great week.